Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of UGASports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I am joined by Dayne Young and Jim Donnan. Coach Jim Donnan, the former Georgia Bulldogs head coach, who is back from Vegas after sending one of his best players, into the College Football Hall of Fame. We're glad Coach flew back today just to make this show. So he should be taking it easy, but he's here to answer your questions. So please get your questions into the comment section, ask away, and share this with your friends. Coach should have just taken the week off, but he's a grinder. So he's here to talk Georgia, LSU, Ohio State, transfer portals, Stetson Bennett, offensive line, whatever the hell you want to talk about. Coach is here to talk about it and answer your questions. Quick shout out to our sponsors over at Athens Ford, Dead Soxy, Your Pie, Prime Shrimp, MyPerfectFranchise.net, and of course, Academia Brewing Company. Coach, I'm so glad you made it back. Tell us how was it in Vegas and seeing your guys there enshrined into the Hall of Fame?
Well, it was a really special moment for Champ, first of all, just to be recognized. And when you listen to all of the credentials that they started talking about, it's amazing. And he didn't win the Heisman Trophy instead of Woodson because he had so many better stats. I think we probably didn't do what we needed to because everybody thought Peyton was going to win it. But just the presence that he has, to walk into the room, and the first time I've seen him in couple years, and just go up there and share that memory together. I'll never forget it. It's just it's kind of a special night for me because I've always said on every show that the two best players I ever coached were Keith Jackson and Champ Bailey, and had a chance to spend some time with Keith last night too. So I'm kind of a little giddy with happy today, just because you feel like that you had some kind of influence on their lives. Certainly, I can't take much credit for their ability and what they were able to do, but they both believed in me and had great careers, not only college but in pro. So I can just tell you this: when you walk in a room and the guy calls you coach, nothing like it, especially when there's about 35 Hall of Fame guys around there. Steve Spurrier, all those guys are in there, and Champ comes running over me and, hey, coach. That's pretty strong.
Looking at that photo, it looks like Champ could still get out there and give you a couple quarters.
Hey, I guarantee he could do it. We were reflecting last night that 127 plays he played against Auburn, 108 in the Peach Bowl against Virginia. Just incredible athlete and an incredible competitor too. Had so much pride. I mean, one night he told me, hey, coach, come on over to intramurals. We're going to get after somebody. He scored 36. They're playing 8-minute quarters. Just unreal player.
That just boggles my mind. So what was the ceremony like? What'd you eat out there? You're in Vegas. I know you tear up the Sin City. So what'd you do?
First of all, the ceremony is, they have all these national scholar athletes, which the first part of it is basically on the academics, and then you eat, and then they have the actual induction for all the, I think there's like 11 or 12 players and 3 coaches, and congratulations to Gary Pinkel from Missouri getting in. But they don't let all the guys talk. They just have these, 2 or 3 minutes on each one. But Andrew Luck was representing the players, and he did a terrific job. It's easy to see, he went to Stanford. He's got a really good delivery. But as far as eating, I was fortunate enough to have Brian Gann, who's always been on a big part of helping me do a lot of things. But he and I went out there together. And so I took him over to Joe's Stone Crab for lunch on Tuesday, and his first venture into the stone crabs. But I know people around here know what they're all about, going down last year to the Orange Bowl. But if you had one of those deals where you had your last meal, it had to be stone crab for me. It was unbelievable. And then he couldn't make up his mind between turtle pie and key lime, so he had one of each. So that was good. And I sent you a picture of the key lime there.
Yeah, we're not talking to you anymore.
A lot of fans may not think that they know Bryant Gant, but they totally do, because when you see Kirby interviewed after the game, in the background on the camera, usually there's Gant and Claude Felton off to the side. That's part of the entourage.
Brian is really a security man for Georgia. I mean, he does everything the day before the game with the team, does an unbelievable job. And talking about Claude, I just saw him tonight, and he was getting ready to go to New York. He just came back from the Peach Bowl where he was talking about the advanced stuff they had to do. Now he's going to New York for the Heisman, and then Monday he's got to go out there to L.A. One of the things the college football playoff has is any of the 4 teams that are involved, that even though they got the first game, they make them go out there and get an advance on what to do if they make the next game, so they don't have to hurry about it. So 2 teams know they're going to be in one hotel, 2 teams in the other, the practice area and all that. I think it's a good idea. So we're sending a group of people out there on Monday, sports information, equipment, operations, training, all that stuff, because it's a big venture making a trip like that. But hey, I know people a lot more interested in the present Dogs, but it's always good when you got a guy in your wheelhouse that played in the same secondary as your head coach, that your head coach feels so strongly about, and just he really helps us recruiting, walking around, talking to kids, everything. I mean, 14 years in the NFL. I mean, if there's ever been a shutdown corner, that's him.
Yep. Well, speaking of the honor that Champ Bailey has received, there's a lot of other guys in the Georgia program that are up for big honors. And we saw that Todd Monken was up for the Broyles Award. He was a finalist.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'm on that committee, and that's 2 years in a row we've lost to the last guy. Last year Lanning lost to the guy from Michigan, and this year he loses to the guy from and if you're basing it from TCU, if you're basing it on the last weekend, TCU was terrible. And I think they probably look at the whole year, and this guy's Lincoln Riley's brother and all. But I'm really not very powerful on that committee, because I sure stood up on the ledge as hard as I could. And he certainly deserved it. But everybody knows what his value is, and certainly he's making about 3 times more than Lincoln Riley's brother. So I don't think he's worried about it too much.
No, that's true. Let's see, the Joe Moore Award, which is the award that goes to the best offensive line unit as a group, is down to Georgia and Michigan. Michigan won it last year, even though Georgia's defensive line plowed right through them in the
that was an embarrassment for the award. I mean, this team wins the best line in America, and they get knocked back the whole game. I don't know what the criteria is. And, some of these guys on these committees, they think Pro Football Focus grades are out of kilter. They really don't know what all Pro Football Focus. Let me tell you, those guys, the pros use them, the colleges use them. They're very creditable guys. They take a lot of pride in what they do. And I've always thought that anything that they stated factually had pretty good research on it. So, but, I think there's some kind of deal about Georgia. Everybody just doesn't want them to win anything. So we just whip their ass and win the championship. I don't know what it is. People talking about that guy from Notre Dame winning the Mackey Award. I don't know if he's going to win it or not, but I mean, it shouldn't be any. Well, if you just base it on half the game, which is about how much Brock gets the ball half the game, he'd win by a long way. But
so you're jumping ahead on me, Coach, because I was going to mention that Brock is a finalist for the Mackey Award. He did win it last year, but he may not win it again this year. Even to your point, you have Dumas Johnson up for the Butkus Award. Tons of Stetson Bennett and for the Davey O'Brien Award. But the biggest news was while you were out there, and yucking it up and having your nice key lime pie that you didn't bring me any. Stetson Bennett announced as one of the 4 finalists for the Heisman Trophy. A lot of pushback on that. People complaining, complaining about him being in it. And I guess because maybe we're a little too close to it, but we see what he does each and every week. And talk about a guy who doesn't play a whole lot in the second half, or heck, I mean, I think he's done.
Yeah, I mean, stats are so.
So
he's had these passes inside the 5, like 13 of them, I think, where the guy got tackled. Stats are everybody around the country look at, but everybody should recognize the winning that he's done and what he contributes to our team with his mobility, avoiding sacks, the way he calls the plays at the line. He's a consummate college quarterback, and regardless of what happens here in the final voting, just to be picked as one of the top 4, tremendous honor. He just won the Burlsworth Award for the top walk-on in the country, and anything he gets, he deserves. He's worked hard for it, and I think we could argue back and forth from our standpoint. Certainly, Hooker has got some things that he did well for Tennessee, and the thing about it, though, that game against South Carolina just kind of taints everything for Tennessee. I think they're not in the playoffs because of that, and he's probably not in the Heisman because we beat them 49-7. They lost 65 to whatever it was.
I do think it's a weird year with some of these awards because if you ask me who the best tight end in the country is, like I would say you probably can't look at the stat sheet and find that out. But that's because I've seen what Darnell Washington can do and how versatile he is. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily a better tight end than Brock Bowers, but I think he's a unicorn in the country. I don't think you can find another player in this country that does what Darnell Washington does. And I think that happens a lot with these kinds of awards, and that happens all across the country.
Yeah, that's a good point on Darnell, but I think there's a tendency because he's so big that everybody thinks he's so athletic and he can block so good on the perimeter and, he catches the ball. But there's a lot of big guys that can block and a lot of big guys that can catch the ball. But the fact that he doesn't play and get the recognition that some of these guys that play every down, he comes out of the game, and so does Bowers, hurts him a little bit. But he'll have the last laugh when he gets drafted in the first round, which that's what's going to happen.
I love it for him. I really, to me, the most fascinating thing this week, Coach, has been we'll talk about transfer portal here in a minute, but it's been the evolution of the criticism of Stetson Bennett. Remember, he started out, he was a walk-on. You can't have a walk-on start at Georgia. Then he was too short. Remember when he couldn't pass over the offensive line? He had 3 or 4 passes knocked down against Alabama. He's too little. Then he can't win the big one because they lost Alabama, and then he won the title. Now the people are like, well, we never said he wasn't any good. Now he's good because he's 25 years old. it's this last grasp of criticism, and I'm like, it's blown my mind all week long. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, we're just wasting people's time talking about that. I mean, hey, he's had, he's going to go down as the biggest winner in the history of Georgia football, and he's been a big prime area for it. And Kirby's making a lot of money off of him and these other guys, and he deserves it too. But and talking about money, I was out there, and you know how it is when you're around coaches and you're talking and off the cuff and everything. The number one thing they're talking about is NIL. I'm talking about. That's why you watch this show here. You can listen to stuff that you wouldn't hear anywhere. And this guy's talking about this kid, and I know the kid. I'm not going to say who he is, but I've seen him play. The kid wants $80,000 a month. He wants $80,000 a month, which is basically $1 million a year in the transfer portal. And this guy is average as grits, maybe not even as good as grits. And he's going to get close to that from somebody, but it's astronomical what's out there now. I mean, it's just people have no idea. You could be sitting in McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Starbucks, and y'all be talking about recruiting. Hey, boy, I hope we get this guy. We got good recruiters. Hey, man, ladies, children, women, everybody, it's a.
May have lost coach there for a moment.
Yeah, we'll get him back here in a second. But he's right. We've at UGASports, we've been hit a few times with people going, oh, well, you said this kid was coming here, or you predicted him here, or you had him in your final list, or you led us to believe this kid was coming to this school. And I'm like, well, the reason we told you that Georgia was in his final 2 or that Georgia was really close or that, we expected him to come to Georgia is because that's what the kid said. That's what the coaches, we've spoken to around the country have said. That's what his handler at his school, his recruiting guy, has told us. You know, this is what his mom told us. We had the quotes on why he picked Georgia. You know, and then all of a sudden he goes to Texas A&M or some other school. And trust me, the same thing happens at Georgia, where kids lined up to go to a different school, and all of a sudden, boom, he's comes to Georgia. Georgia gets that flip, or Georgia gets that commitment. So it's a new world out there. You know, look at Kirby Smart and Josh Brooks and the Athletic Association. They've tweeted out and talked about the Classic City Collective, because you have to be able to go toe to toe with NIL money nowadays. I mean, you can't offer it to them directly, supposedly, but you at least tell them when they sit down with you, look, here's what all our guys have gotten. When you get here, that whole Classic City Collective, they're going to reach out to you, probably set something up with you. Look, here's the average numbers. And that's what these kids want to see. So it doesn't matter how much a kid loves it, whether he's a legacy, whether he's been telling everybody he's coming. It's just like if you're bidding on eBay at the last second, you get your bid in higher than anybody else's.
Roddy, I'd also like $80,000 a month, by the way, just for the record here.
You'd be lucky to get $80.
That's and I heard this kid that just committed to Florida is I don't know if he's getting as much as Napier, but he's getting a lot.
Is he a game changer coordinator now?
I'm talking about quarterback.
I know. I'm just saying that Florida had that big old staff and they couldn't keep. I mean, like it felt like 20 of their players went to the portal almost instantly this year. So that, again, they're going to have virtually a whole new roster.
Yeah, I was talking to this other guy out there. He's talking to me about the Pac-12. I said, let me ask you something. Who won the Pac-12? He said, Utah. I said, do you know who the second worst team in the SEC East was? And he said, Vanderbilt. I said, no, Florida. They got beat by Vanderbilt. You know who they beat? Utah. So, I mean, come on. I was getting on his ass hard. I said, don't tell me about it's just, well, we're gonna get going now. We got Dion, coming in.
Mm-hmm. Coach, do you know Kyle Whittingham? Because I am so impressed with his teams year after year, just with how hard they play this late into the season.
Yeah, I've met Kyle before, and I've done a couple games for him on bowl games when he was coaching at Utah. And the first time I ever met him, he was defensive coordinator for Coach Urban Meyer out at Utah the year that Urban left and went to Florida. And I did the Utah game at the end of the year against BYU. I never will forget it. I was doing some of that sideline work for ESPN.com, and Trev Alberts, who I saw last night, now the AD at Nebraska,
just dropping these names everywhere,
was the guy at ESPN along with Mark May and everything. And those people out at Utah are not supposed to drink or anything like that. But I went down the sideline and I was getting ready to do this interview with Mike Tirico, and they started calling me Trev Alberts. These people were so drunk, they thought I was Trev Alberts. And I told Trev about that last night. It was cool. But I got a good chance to see firsthand. There was a lot of nice people out there in Salt Lake City. But that deal about them drinking, I don't know what happens on that. But either that or they were on something besides alcohol. They were on something heavy.
Well, I'll tell you this, Coach. I went to Georgia Southern University for 2 years, in Bullitt County at the time. I don't know what it is now, but at the time it was a dry county, and that didn't matter.
Oh, yeah, that's good. But, hey, you got to have a drink when you're at the game. Who cares what religious preferences are? You can have a drink.
I love it. Hey, let's take a quick break and talk about our friends over at Athens Ford. Speaking of getting a drink, every time I think about going out there and getting my work done on my vehicle, I know that I'm going to have a good coffee, or I got that all the free drinks out there, the free snacks, the good Wi-Fi, the clean room to get everything. I can take my laptop out there, great, immaculately clean place, and I get everything done. But I want to mention right now is the fact that our friends at Athens Ford have the Angel List they're doing. Now, this is basically for anybody who is when you buy a vehicle out there, they are going to give up to $100 to the Toys for Tots, the Salvation Army Angel List. And that basically is where and this is through December 15th, so you still got a week to go. They have a list of what these kids want in the Athens area. And actually, we were through Classic City Eats, was sponsoring one of the families up there. This young kid wanted a couple pairs of pants, a couple shirts to go with it, and some roller skates. So I'm out there looking for roller skates for this kid. That's exactly what the folks at Athens Ford are doing. They're doing this from every vehicle they sell during the holidays. It's, again, through December 15th. So if you go buy a new or pre-owned vehicle out there, that's going to be another $100. Now, I've seen them do this with bicycles, and you walk into the showroom and there's hundreds of bikes everywhere because they sell a lot of vehicles. So now they're doing this with specific lists for the kids. So the Angel List, which benefits the Salvation Army and Toys for Tots, that's just one of the typical things that our friends at Athens Ford, they do stuff like that all the time. So shout out to them. Go buy a vehicle, and you'll make some kids' Christmas very, very happy. And, of course, you'll have a new car. So we love that. I also want to mention our friends over at Dead Soxy. Okay, Dead Soxy is they make premium socks. They take great care of us here at UGASports. They sponsor not only this show, but they do our weekly Predict the Score contest. They send out these nice packets to them. Right now, they have 25% off and free shipping on all orders. Think about it. This is their busiest time of the year. It's Christmas. You need Christmas gifts. You want to get something for someone that they will actually enjoy, that they will appreciate, that they will like. These socks are incredibly comfortable. They don't fall down. They have the True Stay technology. They're fantastic colors and designs and such. So check out our friends at Dead Soxy. You'll absolutely love it. Use promo code HOLIDAY25 to get 25% off and free shipping. And here's the thing. When they come to you, the packaging looks so good, you probably won't even have to wrap it. This is not like socks in a plastic bag. They look fantastic. They go all out when they deliver them to you. They look sharp. So you can go straight to, hey, gift's done. Make sure the receipt's not in there or something like that. Stick it on the tree with a bow on it. You're done. So hit them up when you have the chance.
It looks like their lane train socks are still there. I was afraid they were going to have to get these in orange and blue a few weeks ago, and they hung around.
No, the red and black ones are really, really sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear this one factoid out there that Hugh Freeze gave $500,000 to charity, and then he figured she didn't want it, so he gave it to Candy.
Oh.
You hear a lot when you're out in Vegas talking to those people.
Yeah. Hey, did you
on the boardwalk?
You were in Vegas, I guess. Barry Odom was on his way, right? For UNLV.
Is he in a job? Is he going to get that job?
I think he got the job.
Good Lord. I mean,
before we get to these questions, give us some of your thoughts on these coaches.
He was out there last night, so I saw him.
Barry Odom got the UNLV job.
Who else did you see?
Hey, there's hope for everybody, man. Woo!
Kirby go out there?
Let me tell you one thing. Kirby is recruiting his ass off every day. I mean, 24/7, that guy. I mean, he's going to have to go, not that he has to, but he's going to go up to the Heisman, which he should, but, he's going to try to get back, for those recruits that are in here this weekend. Just an inordinate amount of planning they do for these kids. Unbelievable, all the stuff that goes into a recruiting weekend. Just unbelievable. But Barry Odom,
The Arkansas defense didn't impress you, did it, Coach?
Good break for Coach Pitt. I mean, they'll get a new D coordinator there. And congratulations to Ben Souders. I read on the dog vent that Roddy told everybody about Ben Souders going to Arkansas, and they announced him today. Did you see that, Roddy?
I didn't know that they had announced it, but that was a big deal. I want to talk about the strength and conditioning coaching tree. You got Aaron Feld. Who's the guy that was at Baylor? Corey Campbell, I think. There's a lot of guys come out of the Georgia strength and conditioning program that are leading other strength and conditioning programs. And when you look at Georgia's players,
the guy at Jackson State is going with Coach Prime. He was from here too.
I'm saying
Dion.
Coach Prime, yeah.
And Coach Prime is
casually,
head coach to be his offensive coordinator.
Not his strength coach. I don't know I don't think his strength coach was Dion.
No, I'm just asking, have you met Coach Prime before?
Oh yeah. I can be. I don't know if people want to hear stories, but I was coaching. I was coaching Oklahoma in '86 or '7, whatever year Prime was just getting started, and we went down to watch. Basically, we watched Florida State's defense, but all our coaches. I used to coach Tallahassee, so I wanted to go down there and saw Coach Bowden and talked to him a little bit, before practice. And he said, "Hey, boys, we're going to have a good practice today, but I want you to watch. We got this old boy coming out dead gummit. He ain't going to be able to practice because he's running track and playing baseball too, but he might come out there and wear a pair of shoulder pads and some baseball pants or track pants. And he's a really good player named Deion Sanders." And he came running out there just like he does, and he had on shoulder pads and a helmet. And he did a skeleton 7-on-7 and then ran off and was doing track. Just phenomenal player.
Chuck Ward saw you talking about the drinking at ball games. He said, "I took my 10-year-old son on a tour of the Jack Daniels distillery. We walked into the barrel house. He pulled on my pants leg and he whispered, 'Daddy, this smells like a college football game.'"
That's a good one, Chuck. I agree with him. He's right. He's right. Good work, Chuck. That's a good, funny one.
Hey, Coach, with the transfer portal, I know you said NILs with the coaches that you were around over the last day or two have been talking about, but just with the around the country, the volume of people entering the transfer portal, I know just seeing from our guys that work on the site here and for Rivals as a whole, it feels like a whole nother recruiting cycle has just been jolted into here with the amount of players that can just be moving around.
Yeah, I mean, it all gets down to roster management, ever how you do it. I mean, losing guys to the pros, losing guys to transfer, losing guys to graduation, injuries, and you got to monitor your squad. You can only have 85 on the team at once. So it takes a real good philosophy of who you want to have, as evidence about last year when we didn't take any transfers. But I think at this point this year, with some of the injuries we've had at receiver and the guys we're leaving, I could see us taking a couple receivers, maybe a defensive back. And then after that, who knows? But and then all of a sudden with the coaching changes around the country, you see decommitments like Reuben Owens was committed to
Louisville,
and now says he's going to be up in the air. But, we're still working hard on Haynes, trying to flip him. I don't know how that would influence that situation. So it's just a give and take here over the next couple of weeks. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. But I wouldn't think there's going to be anybody on our team that leaves that would make that much difference before the bowl game. After that, there might be somebody that starts looking at it. But there's too many of these guys vested in our program to keep. They're going to keep playing here through these next 2 games, hopefully 2 games.
Satterfield.
I would say to you, in case somebody's got to watch some other station tonight here at 8 o'clock, I'm encouraged about playing Ohio State. I don't care what everybody says about their passing game, about everything else, but their quarterback's not a mobile quarterback. He's not a guy that really threatens you to run the ball. He can certainly throw it, and they can run it with their backs and their receivers, but when you got Kirby Smart or Schumann or Muschamp, when they can play man underneath with 2 deep safeties, or they can play some kind of combination man where they can play these underneath routes and not worry about the quarterback running, which we were very much worried at that first half the other day, and it really influenced our linebacker play, which we don't have the kind of linebacker coverage guys like we had last year in Tyndall and Dean and Quay Walker, all 3 playing pro ball. Our guys are more run stoppers, and they worked on our intermediate zone drops. They really worked hard on us, and when we were playing zone behind that, Malachi had a couple really bad breaks, one on the half coverage and then the one in the end zone where they scramble. He's got deep middle, and he came running up. It looked like Keeley was beat, but Keeley's playing deep third on the one and playing half on the other. So, the average fan thinks it's Ringo, but he certainly got beat some. But I can just tell you right now, I sleep, and Kirby probably get on I sleep pretty good knowing we're playing Ohio State myself.
I can see why a lot of folks would have fears, though, when you see what Stroud does and you see those wide receivers. They had 2,000-yard receivers, and then you go back to last year when Georgia struggled against Alabama with a couple good receivers. You could see that kind of nervousness. I had it. The team I didn't want to face last year, I was like,
you're right, but
Bryce
Young killed us running. He got touchdowns running. This guy doesn't run, and we rushed the pass. You saw how we rushed Hooker. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but But the biggest reason I sleep like a baby is looking at their defense. They built their whole defense around pressure. The guy was at Oklahoma State, one of my favorite schools, and I know that he got torched by the pass out there, and he got killed by so much pressure defense. And he did the same thing against Michigan, 4 plays over 60 yards in that game. So, you know, that's the one good thing that Kirby says to our whole team, regardless of what the matchups are, our 44, 55 men that are playing against theirs, I like it. You know, but somebody's got to take up the slack in one of the areas. Ohio State doesn't play a lot of starters on their special teams. They play a lot of second and third. I think we got a big edge there. So we'll see how it goes. But I usually got a pretty good feel for these games. I'm not predicting that it's going to be anything easy, but I mean, I'm not ready to be the prophet of doom like my man Radi is because
I've got all sorts of things to worry about before we get there. I got 3 weeks of worrying.
We did give up some yardage to LSU for sure.
500 yards. It's not much.
But as people that watch our podcast, if you watched every show this year, I told you that our defense was not that good on normal down and distance. We're better when we know what the other team's doing, which most teams are, but we played to our strength all year, playing ahead of the sticks, and you know, particularly against Tennessee. So give LSU credit, but I've never seen a play turn the game around like that blocked field goal, which we predicted on the watch-along show because we scouted them that they'd had trouble. But the reason he picked the ball up, you know, we talk to our players all the time, every coach. If the ball goes across the line of scrimmage, let it go. There's nothing to be advantaged there. You might pick it up and fumble and they get the ball. But if it's obvious that you got a clear path, then maybe you take it and go. And Chris saw that. And, hey, to all the officials, you can look at the all 22 copy. None of them had their whistle up to the mouth. I mean, nobody was blowing it dead. And, man, you go from 3 down to 7 up in a New York minute. That was big.
And, Coach, I was particularly impressed with Smile Munden and his alertness on that play because he looks Christopher Smith in the eye and he's waving off saying, don't touch it, don't touch it. And you almost see his hand drop to say, all right, go. Like almost as if he's still signal calling out there as that inside linebacker.
Is that what he did?
I said almost. It just appeared. It looked that way.
Well,
just how
Chris Smith actually said, you know, when the award that he was up for recently, they were asking him about that. He was on stage and he said, I was hovering over it, you know, and everybody was yelling for me to get away. And then I looked at the ref and the ref's like, you know, I haven't done anything. So the ref's like looking at the ball, waiting for, because he has to blow it dead, but somebody's got to down it. The ref does a live ball. Chris Smith made eye contact with him. It was like, the guy's like, I can't tell you what to do, but you know, saying blowing a whistle. So he picks it up and takes it to the house. You know, they said that the rule there is you have to be able to score, which I thought was funny.
It was like that coach one time that was, you know, telling the secondary coach, said, tell him to get back. And he said, we can't get back, coach. We can't. He said, tell him to get back. He said, coach, we gotta play him tight. He said, I said to tell him get back or you're fired. Get back. Run it. Yes, run it. I thought that monkeying up there was giving him that like that, and then he started, ready to run with it.
But you're right, because you were telling us about the Peter call means don't touch it. If you watch the tape, you can see, if you read lips, he's screaming Peter as if they can hear him on the field. I love it.
Well, you've seen some plays this year where we picked up, or over the last couple of years, where we picked up a ball carelessly and then it ends up being a fumble.
Yeah.
So that's just, you know, it's so good to get the ball. You really got to be careful. But so what's next here?
Well, I got to brag on you, Coach, because some of our audience on this may not have seen the watch-along show that we did on Saturday, and you had one of the craziest prediction calls come to life that I've ever seen before. This return happens. Christopher Smith goes all the way down the field, and Coach Donnan turns and he says, one of the Georgia players is about to have a cramp. And sure enough, on the kickoff, there goes Cass Jones falling to the ground. Concerned Ron Corson runs out to check on him, and thank God he was all right. He got
He'd been
on
so
up.
busy up to that point.
And then sure enough, like that next
He called
drive,
the block kick too.
but then LSU scores very quickly. You could see Christopher Smith like still wasn't going full speed because he just run 95 yards.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, it's nothing wrong with it. I mean, every coach has got guys that you want to give your team in a turnover situation. You want to give your team a little blow there, and you know you're going to get a TV timeout, get 2 or 3 extra minutes. So it's not exactly faking the injury, but it's not exactly. But you know, it's smart. I mean, everybody does it. So
Stetson said it was hot in the dome or in the stadium. So
It was.
Yeah.
You get one. You can pull a hammy. Got to be careful. Got to get it looked at.
You need to watch long. You find out some stuff once in a while.
Hey, something else you need to do is reach out to our friends at Your Pie. It's Wednesday, so we've kind of missed the double points Tuesday, but they still have a great deal going on now where you use the app and you order your pizzas and such. You get points for it, and that gets you free breadsticks, free gelato, free drinks, free pizzas, free salads, all sorts of things like that. Check out that barbecue chicken bacon ranch. That is a heck of a pizza. I don't know if you've ever had it before, but it is really, really good with the barbecue sauce, the mozzarella, the red onion, cilantro, chicken, bacon, served the ranch on it or on the side, up to you. The hot honey pepperoni, that was one of their specialties. They put that into the rotation, get it all the time. The buffalo chicken, my favorite, just saying. And of course, they have the custom pastas and then the custom salads, and you don't have to pay each time you add something onto it, each topping. There are a lot of really good places out there where you go and you get the pizza, and then if you want 3 toppings, each one's $1.50, $2.50 a pop, and all of a sudden you've doubled the cost of your pizza. That's not going to happen at Your Pie. So hit up Your Pie when you get a chance. Drew and Natalie French are gigantic Georgia fans, Georgia alums. I can tell you for a fact that they take great pride in serving the Athens community and the other 70 communities that they're in. Also mention our friends over at sorry, I hit that. Stop it.
We're both clicking.
Stop it. I mention our friends over at My Perfect Franchise. My Perfect Franchises is Andy Ludecki. He has about 3,000 different franchises he can help get you into, whether it be, and you see the different categories here. There's the home-based franchise. There's the non-home-based franchise. There's the service with heavy outbound sales. There's light retail, large retail. So he's got all these different things set up. But I want to tell you about one of the people working with him, okay? Brandon Beachy. How many of you are Braves fans? You remember Brandon Beachy as a pitcher in the major leagues. So was also with the Los Angeles Dodgers, but who cares about them? So Brandon Beachy is working with Andy Ludecki at My Perfect Franchise. So you can call up Andy, you can call up Brandon, and they will help you get the franchise you want. Now, we are going to have Brandon come on to the dog vent and answer your questions. So we'll do a Q&A with him where you can ask him all these Braves questions. You can get his thoughts and stuff like that. So reach out to My Perfect Franchise. Go to myperfectfranchise.net, and you can either choose to talk to Andy, who's been doing it a long time, or Brandon, who's obviously a smart guy and can help you with that. So either one of them, hit them up when you get a chance.
So 3 coaching things around the country that I wanted to point out that have caught my attention as we mentioned the portal, but then these coaching shifts happen too. One, I don't know if there's anything crazier than Scott Satterfield leaving Louisville, going to Cincinnati, and then they're playing each other in the bowl game. And on top of that, that bowl game is at Fenway Park, and the 2 teams are sharing a sideline.
Yeah, that's why they do that game there, and that game they both get it. They did that out in California. Scott Satterfield's a good coach. I mean, did a good job at Appalachian, and okay at Louisville. I mean, he had some injuries and all, but deep down, they've been wanting Jeff Brom to come back ever since Howard Snellenberger left. And he's a favorite son of Louisville, played in high school ball there and played college. And he's a really good offensive coach. So I think it'll be win-win for Louisville and Cincinnati. I mean, they lose a good coach there in Luke Fickell, who's done a great job, and going over there to Wisconsin. And so are bringing in Phil Longo from North Carolina, who has got a great reputation, offensive coach, but never seems to do it in the big games. He always gets a lot of stats against, other people, but in big games, they like the last 3 games, this year their red zone offense was really bad.
The second thing that caught my attention today, so Kenny Dillingham, who was the offensive coordinator under Dan Lanning at Oregon, he left to go to Arizona State to be the head coach. Lanning replaced him with the new offensive coordinator. Dillingham's only 32 years old, replaced him with what's his last name? Will Stein from UTSA. He's 33 years old, and he was coaching in high school like 3 years ago in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a terrific job at UTSA. That guy came in there from Arkansas after coaching with Morris and had really good quarterback. I mean, that guy is spectacular the way he can run the ball and throw it. And I think that's what Dan's looking for, that kind of offensive production. And, Dan's only 36, so they're not worried about age. So it's a good move. I mean, Willie Stein making it out there to be the offensive coordinator.
And the last thing, this is more of just a recruiting deal, but it's always fun when you get kind of a blast from the past here. And Jake Gaines, former Georgia linebacker, head coach at Moody High School in Alabama, had Sam Pittman over to look at some potential recruits out that way. So Jake Gaines doing some big stuff in Alabama, and he's a good coach.
Yeah, Jake was a big transfer for us, came in from UAB. Actually covered him at UAB when he was playing over there, and then so he came in here and played for Coach Rick, and doing a good job coaching. And it's always good when you see your ex-players doing well, and I'm sure Sam was glad to talk to him.
JT Wall just won a state title, right? JT Wall just won a state title, didn't he? At John Millage?
Yeah, I think he's got some record for the most number of wins at the school he's at. So,
but I just always worthy of shout.
I'm saying there's a lot of these guys. I mean, Mark Dees down in Florida is coaching. There's, of course, Edwards. Coach
over there at Sandersville now, Washington County.
Yeah, so it's a lot of those guys out there. Right, let's get into a few questions. I know we got a bunch of
Ward coaching at new league. He's on TV tonight. He's going to be a head coach of whatever team. I'm not sure where they're located, but he's the head coach.
You send him a play or two?
No, I won't send him anything. He knows what he's doing.
I'm trying to see where he's the head coach at now. He's currently the head coach of the San Antonio Brahmas.
That's no bull.
Oh, my God.
Here we go.
See, puns are great. Thank you.
Hang on.
From Dog 418, who will get reps at tackle next year besides Mims and Green?
Oh, there'll be a lot of guys. We got some freshmen coming in, and we got some other guys that'll move around. I think we could see if Truss comes back. I think he certainly could come back. I think he could be a tackle. He started against Cincinnati, we'll see how that all flips around. But I feel good about our O-line next year. It'd be nice if Van Pran stayed for another year, but if he doesn't, we'll just have to work. You got Blasky. You got a lot of guys that can play tackle.
From NBA Timber Dog, can coach diagnose the pass defense issues from Saturday and share what actions you take as a coach to mitigate those going forward?
Well, earlier in the show, I talked about we played a lot of zone coverage, which is not normal for Georgia, but some of that's basically on the fact that we were worried about the quarterback runs. The guy had over 1,000 yards rushing going into the game. Now he lost some yards, which took away from it. So you got to be mindful of that. So once you play man coverage, he breaks a line, he can really hurt you. So we're not a real good zone reading the route type linebackers underneath. They worked up with their slot guy between the star and the linebacker, working in that area, and then throwing the in breaking routes, which we call a 6 route or a square in. They hit several of those where they just read the linebacker, high-low with the back or tight end with a square in behind it, and the corners are playing zone. So I think it's a combination of route recognition by our linebackers, being worried about the run by the quarterback, and just some poor zone drops by our linebackers and some poor zone coverage by our safeties really hurt us. But as I mentioned before, we're a man team that likes to play man free, 2 deep man under, man matchup. So we'll see a lot more of that against the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I got to see Jim Tressel last night talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's now he's the president of Youngstown State. and nice guy. We used to have some good matchups there at Youngstown and Marshall, and then he did a great job at Ohio State.
Patrick Garvin pulled the great video of Georgia versus Ohio State, the only time they've played in 1993, and none other than Kirk Herbstreit out there with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, Kirk was rolling over there, and Robert Smith, a guy I used to do some stuff with on ESPN, was playing running back for him. So, but that's a long time ago, that's for sure.
From Farmer Dog, I'm aware that Jalen Carter is an alien, but since his return, I haven't heard anything about Bear Alexander and how he's progressing. Also, do you think that Dan Jackson's football IQ would have helped on Saturday?
Well, first of all, anything you say about Jalen Carter, you can say it and be truthful, even if you make it up. I mean, the guy can do anything. He's just, he's just a man child. I mean, just has always been that. He was among the best players in the country last year on our team, but didn't get near the readout because he had those other guys. But and you just see just the significance of his movement at the line of scrimmage where, he'll line up and go underneath a block and made the tackle on that short yardage, which was huge because they were threatening to score again. And just the worry wart part of an offensive lineman having to watch tape on him and knowing you're going to have to block him. And the other team trying to figure out how to take care of him is certainly a big factor. As far as Bear, I think Bear's making some really good progress. I watched him out there several times when I was over there, particularly when getting ready for Tech, and got good hand placement. By that, you got power and you got takeoff, but you got to use your hands appropriately as far as getting around people, swim moves, punching. He's got a good 1-2 punch, and he's got good. He's really profiting from playing for Coach Trey Scott technique-wise. He was kind of just like a young cub, and now he's developing into a bear because he never played much, in this level as far as competition. But got good quickness, size, speed. Going to be a real player for us. But the guy who's playing lights out, Stackhouse, just unbelievable way he contributes with his quickness and. He takes advantage of not being double teamed like a lot of guys inside are because of Carter. And, boy, he is really doing good. And, of course, Walt Howard's stepping in and doing some things. Everybody's got a role on that defensive front, and can't say enough about them. They just play good as a unit.
I do want to mention that on the watch-along, Coach said the one guy we're not talking about enough is Nazir Stackhouse, and, 30 seconds later he made a big play. I was like –
It's based on watching the tape and watching what he does. I mean, a lot of times people don't make a lot of hoopla about somebody because they're not making 95 tackles behind the line and all, but he takes on blockers and is disruptive and makes people redirect with their running game as far as backs changing their lanes and stuff because of his penetration, and just very disruptive player and very fast. I mean,
it's also a great interview, and he's going to do really well if they let him go to SEC Media Days. You need to follow him on TikTok. He's actually quite
funny. That doesn't hurt either.
While we're talking about defensive linemen, I guess we should mention Georgia's only player at the moment in the transfer portal is Bill Norton. Roddy, you put that in your 3-2-1 report on Friday, so UGASports subscribers knew about it a few days ago that was likely happening. But Bill Norton, reserve defensive lineman, and there'll be more people leaving from Georgia. I think we all know that. But that's the first so far.
Yeah, Bill's done a good job here. I mean, he's a good team player. He's been good on the scout team and been very solid. I think I could see him going somewhere else.
All right.
I'm not only could see him going somewhere else. I mean, by that I mean somewhere where he's got some familiarity in our.
And he'll play in the SEC. I mean, he's good. It's tough when you got Nazir and Trammell and Jalen Carter ahead of you. So I see it.
I love this question from UGA Farm Dog. Says every year we see some younger players take advantage of the extra practices in December and then make an impact in the bowl game. Who will that be this season?
Good point. We talked about Largy a couple years ago. I think Roddy talked about him down at the when they played Texas, and every year there's guys that step up. I mean, I could see, for instance, maybe Bell continuing to develop. You know, he caught a touchdown pass the other day. He's made terrific progress, and he's taking advantage of A.D. Mitchell being out. He would be one. Maybe Delp continue to develop, you know, and getting a lot of reps. As far as secondary, I could see Everett being a guy that
Still my guy.
strong.
Well, the one that I had in my brain, because we're seeing him a little bit more each week in some different ways, is Jalen Walker.
He's getting in there, but he just got to start making plays and not just be on the field. I mean, he's got to start getting some production, but he's definitely got a lot ahead of him. He's a good player.
I was going to try to transition. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do it to Academia Brewing or Prime Shrimp, so I'll let the professional transitioner do it.
Well, if you're looking to make an improvement, you know, step up your game a little bit there. You want to step up your game and head over to our friends at Academic Brewing Company, because they are prize winners, and they are a fantastic place to go watch the game when you get a chance. They've done a lot of fun stuff with the World Cup. So if you're into soccer, not football, soccer, check out our friends over there, because they have the TVs going all the time. They always have new beers going out. Now they have the Imperial O Negative beer. They also have interesting tastes and names, but this is a raspberry, blackberry, blueberry, lactose, and Madagascar vanilla beans, heavy-handed, featuring that sort of thing. It's just there's a lot to it. That's a very complicated beer, but I can tell you it looks fantastic. I haven't tried that one yet. They were in the Watkinsville Parade. You can see their fantastic bus. This is the same bus that they've had over at the Royal Pheasant. Because they have taps inside that bus where they pour beer. So they parked that bus over the Royal Pheasant, and they were taking care of the people there with their fantastic beers. They're going to have a Christmas trivia on Thursday, December 22nd. You need to check that out. That's going to be a fun event. And the point being, they always have something neat going on. And hey, if you got somebody in your family, you don't know what to get them, swing by and grab a bunch of their different types of beer. They've got an entire cooler full of it. So check out Academia Brewing Company when you get the chance.
That parade looked really cool.
Academia is the food. I mean, you can take any type of person that you want to, and they can find something they want there. I mean, my family's hard to please, but I guarantee you, every time I take them there, they come out of there. Hey, everybody, I'm talking about, you got grandchildren, you got kids, everybody, but they got anything you want, and it's all good. I mean,
a bunch of new stuff. So.
I'm fired up about it. I'm not much on the beer part, but I am on the groceries.
Well, that parade looked really cool. You know where they have cool parades, Roddy, is New Orleans. And I know what you like in New Orleans, but you can get it at home in Athens.
Yeah,
you got the Christmas trivia, which we'll give you one. You know why Santa Claus had a garden?
What's that?
Freaking ho, ho, ho.
Oh, God.
That's 3 puns, Roddy. You're going to have to find them.
You're not allowed to go to Vegas anymore. We're going to nip that in the bud. Hey, our friends over at Prime Shrimp, they have a new flavor out, okay? One of my favorite meals of all times was at a place called Rita's in the French Quarter, and I had the first time I'd ever had New Orleans barbecue shrimp. It is fantastic. Now this is a Prime Shrimp. They are in New Orleans. They basically make shrimp. It comes in a boil-in bag. It's shipped to you frozen. You take it out, you drop it in boiling water, you wait 4 or 5 minutes, or you flip it over, take it out, cut it open, pour it right into your pasta, your tacos, whatever, however you want it. You want shrimp and grits, you got that. But they have a new flavor. They just introduced it this week, the barbecue shrimp, the New Orleans true barbecue shrimp. Try that. You're going to love it. I've got some of it coming to my house right now. I saw the tracking order. It should be here tomorrow. I'd hope to have it before the show, but check them out when you get a chance. Go to the website, $15 off your first order. Most of these packets, and there's two bags in each one, are anywhere from $17 to $20. So get $15 off your first one. But basically, buy one, get one almost free. So hit up Prime Shrimp when you get the chance. You will love it.
This question from PTech1, Pop, Jamon Dumas Johnson, has seemed a little lost in the last few games. Do you think that he has lost any confidence? And what can Georgia do to get that fixed before the playoffs?
Well, he's a run stopper type guy. I mean, and that's his forte. And I don't think he's lost any confidence. He just never been that confident covering the pass. It's hard to be a multifaceted linebacker in today's football, but this is his first year really playing every down, so he'll get better at it. And I think, in all fairness to him, he's had a heck of a year. I mean, you just can't base it all on some of the play action that was hit by both Tech and certainly what they were able to do at LSU. But Munden can really cover pretty well. I mean, he's very athletic and tackles pretty well in space. But you can't beat everything in every position.
Just looking ahead, I'm going to be so curious to where Darius Smith fits into this defense next year and beyond, because just his measurables are so special.
Let me tell you something. I can just go out on a limb there. Now, that guy can flat out run to be as big as he is, and he looks like he weighs about 160, but he's about 230, and he's going to be 250. He's a Jalen Walker type athlete. And just had a couple little setbacks injury-wise. He got a really good attitude, good kid. Yes, sir, no, sir. He's a star in the making. I mean, really good player, going to be really good. We got so many good young guys. Scary, very scary, some of these guys.
So you hear that, Roddy? You heard it from Dayne first.
Dayne is general manager.
You heard it from Dayne first.
Hey,
Dayne was on that.
Are you up for
he was on high on Darius Smith? Wow.
Are you up for the Titans general manager job?
They haven't called me yet. That's all I can tell you. That doesn't mean I'm not, but I haven't gotten the call yet.
I figured that you'd be the first on their list.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's a sad day. I called Jimmy Sexton, see if he can help me out.
He could now. Jimmy can help you. Power broker.
This question from Mikey P, 1983. The consensus seems to be that the biggest threat that Ohio State poses is the explosive plays in the passing game. Do you agree with that, or do you think that there's something else that they do that Georgia should be more concerned about?
I just think their overall talent level is very similar to ours, probably as much talent as we played this year. I don't think we played anybody this year that even compares to us talent-wise. I think they've recruited on a level. You look at their recruiting rankings. The one back has been hurt. If he can come back, I was glad to see the one receiver has decided to go pro. The one that caught 16 passes in the Rose Bowl last year. But they certainly pose a threat. I mean, anybody in these last four, are all capable of. The other three are capable. They've had great years, but just overall skill level, talent-wise, I think the best team we've played as far as just 1 through 44.
Do they have what sort of running game does Ohio State have?
They got that one back that's stronger than Aunt Mary's breath now. I mean, that sucker is good now. I mean, I can't even think of his name because he hadn't played much, but he'll be ready for us probably. But it's a Robbins or something like that. I'm not sure. Robinson played.
You talking about Travion Henderson?
Travion Henderson, that's him. That's a routine name, Travion. That's good. We had a guy that went to my high school. His name was Lonnie Ron. This guy Travion. We had a guy named Lonnie Ron Muskow, and he had a brother named Hayron Muskow. So he had Lonnie Ron and Hayron. They were two of the great ones. They both were really good at setting up the duck pins on the bowling. They could put them up there faster than anybody. They got more tips than anybody at the Y.
I'll say this about Ohio State, though. Stroud only has 6 interceptions on the year, and they do throw a lot. And so they don't turn it over a ton. And you don't have
to passer.
You don't have to look past the SEC champion. LSU played with Georgia much better than that score indicated, because you had the special teams touchdown and then you had the interception into LSU territory. And I was really impressed with what LSU did with inferior talent.
And losing their quarterback halfway through.
But also, we basically had only two quarters of offense. I mean, second and third, we didn't do anything the first quarter. We didn't have the ball. And in the fourth quarter, we were in a sit-on-it mode. So we scored 50 points in 2 quarters. Come on.
Well, I guess I'm saying, like, for it to be at the end of the first quarter with that inferior talent, to me, that's some pretty good coaching that you're able to bleed the clock that way.
Oh yeah, they did a good job coaching, no question about it.
And I just think LSU in the future is going to continue to be a force in the SEC if they can fix something.
They should be with all they got down there, and every year. I mean, you're the school in the state. They got a lot of resources.
I had wondered if Cedric Van Pran kind of, when you play the team that you grew up closest to, you kind of put a little more into it. And he had such a good game for Georgia in that SEC championship.
He's a player.
That's all the questions from UGASports.com this week, Roddy. It is. We have some from YouTube we can get to.
Hit the YouTube ones real quick. Let's run through some of those. Scroll back up and pick up a few.
Let's see. I thought you would filibuster while I did that. We've talked about the pass defense.
I will mention that, folks, you need to tune in. Normally we have the show on Tuesdays at noon, so we really appreciate everybody jumping in on 7:30 on a Wednesday. But
my bad, it was all me.
No, Dayne couldn't be here either, and I had to run to Conyers, so it worked out well. So we appreciate the evening crew joining us.
Question from Andrew. Thoughts on Chaz Chambliss as he stepped in for Nolan Smith? And I agree. He probably had his best game this year.
He's continued to improve. I mean, he was a spot player and then was called on to play more. And some of the plays, some of the defenses that we call, he's not as good as he is in others. But he's a solid guy. He works hard in the weight room. He plays as good as he can play on every snap. I mean, you can't have enough guys like him on your team.
He killed that right tackle to get that sack. Just
he did a good job.
Captain Guybob wants to know, does Georgia use any outside recruiting services as well as the in-house team? That's a pretty good question.
Yeah, I think what we do is use more of these services for younger guys, to save the time that that guys like Matt Godwin, all this. So you get a list from these people, and then you give them to your volunteer kids that break the film down. We got about 15 guys over there that are students that watch tape. And so we use some of that, but we don't really use it like it's that big a deal. But our number one recruiting service is Kirby Smart. I mean, the guy makes the decision on the players, and he goes and gets them.
Coach, I wanted to ask you, because we mentioned that Georgia in the portal may be looking for receiver for some depth. Thomas from Mississippi State being one that Georgia has offered. But for 2 weeks in a row, Mike Leach this season just really dogged his receivers and said that they weren't playing well, they weren't physical enough, they weren't the kind of players you want to be receivers in a Mike Leach offense. Why would that translate over to Georgia?
I mean, you just analyze what a guy is and how he can fit in your team. And I don't think the attitude is – but I do know that whoever can give that guy Thomas a chair will probably get him.
They're going after Rod Thomas. They're also going after Cephas, the guy that's at Kent State. Todd Monk is going to go see him. He's either already seen him today or was supposed to see him today.
Certainly looking at several receivers. You don't know that they'd take the guy, but he did a good job against us. And I think that's something that really is saying here is you've had a chance to study so much more tape on guys that you played. You've got all the tape that you saw on him prior to the game, your scouting report, and we go infinite detail on each kid, all the stuff we talk about. So you got a little bit of a jump start on both those guys because you played against them.
And that was something Kirby Smart was asked during the press conference with Coach Day. There were a lot of portal questions that particular day, and he mentioned, some of the guys going to the portal, the guys that we're looking for, ideally – we have a previous relationship with them, i.e. they've been to our camp. We've worked them out. We've seen them. We recruited them. We know a little bit about their character. Some guys going into the portal are going into it because they're not good people. I don't want to rip on them, but they weren't a good fit.
You got to be careful about taking those guys, and you got to be careful too about guys with high school reputations that were 5-star, 4-star, and all of a sudden they're in a portal, and it might be because you evaluate them, and they're not as good as you thought they were in high school once they've started playing in college. So
absolutely,
there's some guys out there.
They're going after Ra. They're going after the Cephas kid. They scout him. They knew that he was a danger to their team, and so that's another, like you said, familiarity with him. And to get back to Captain's question, the Joe Winden over at National Preps does exactly what Coach was talking about. They go and see kids, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and they give Georgia a list of here's a guy that's got the height that you want, the weight that you want, the speed. He's a looker, and then Georgia will get them into camp and stuff like that. So they do use recruiting services basically to identify, but not to evaluate. So they'll do all the evaluations themselves. But hey, trust they use the rival stuff all the time. They look for our heights and weights when we have the kids come to camp. They look at all the film we put out. Basically trying to find somebody, but they won't use our rankings or our evaluations at all. But they will definitely use the tape we give them when we had our camps. They love the tape.
You go back to the COVID year, we talked about that's an anomaly because you didn't have the kids in camp. Mm-hmm. You had to base pretty much everything on evaluation. A lot of them couldn't even make official visits, so you couldn't get the eyeball test on them. So there was a lot of mistakes that year by everybody just because you did so much easier if you have a guy in camp. I mean, I love camp. I like going over there and watching them. It fires me up. Just see those kids and you know about their reputation, and then you look at them and you say, man, this guy can really play. Like I remember when I went over there and watched Brock Vandegrift when he's like 10th grade, man, I was fired up. Same way about Caleb Williams. I mean, quarterbacks, I'd love to see those guys look like that.
Roddy, you had mentioned Kent State, and I want to sneak this in here before we go because the most stunning coaching move of this offseason was like just now offseason, I guess, of the last week. Sean Lewis from Kent State leaving, the head coach at Kent State, who did a really good job with that team against Georgia, leaving to be offensive coordinator at Colorado. Coach, that shocked me.
Well, I mean, it shocks you because he was a head coach, but also he's only making about $400,000 there. He can make $1 million at Colorado probably. But I'm sure Coach Prime will do a good job there. But boy, their talent level is really low, and they can't
do much worse.
They got a long way to go. I mean, they're 1-11 this year. Very low team.
And nowhere to go but up. Basically, the theme of this show. All right, folks, appreciate everybody tuning in. We will be back next Tuesday at noon. Be sure to join us there on this same Facebook page or YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe if you would. We greatly appreciate it. We finally hit 32,000 subscribers. So now we want 35. We're never satisfied. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Athens Forward, Europe High, Academia Brewing Company, Dead Soxy, Prime Shrimp, and My Perfect Franchise. We appreciate them sponsoring our show all year long. It means a lot to us. And we will see you folks next week.